All right, y'all, welcome to the Scott Horton Show. I'm the director of the Libertarian Institute, editorial director of antiwar.com, author of the book Fool's Errand, Time to End the War in Afghanistan, and the brand new Enough Already, Time to End the War on Terrorism. And I've recorded more than 5,500 interviews since 2003, almost all on foreign policy, and all available for you at scotthorton.org. You can sign up for the podcast feed there, and the full interview archive is also available at youtube.com/Scott Horton Show. All right, you guys, check it out. I got Mark Perry on the line. Good old Mark Perry. You know, I was just talking with James Carden earlier about you and your journalism that you wrote up about McGregor versus McMaster, about how to fight a war against a conventional war against Russia and Eastern Europe. Because that's important. And so, of course, you wrote the most important thing about it. So it happened to come up earlier on the show. But today you got a really important one here at Responsible Statecraft. It's called The Stryker is a Death Trap. And there's direct quotes on that. I'm pretty sure they're not ironic or scare quotes. They're quotes of someone who knows, saying so authoritatively. The Stryker is a, quote, death trap, but you're paying for it anyway. And in other words, American GIs are going to die in it anyway. Welcome back to the show. How you doing, Mark?
It's great to be here. And as always, you're on topic and on time. It's good. It's good to hear from you again.
Yeah, man. Well, happy to talk to you about this. And, you know, we could be talking about any aspect of the military. It's all caught up in essentially these rackets, right? As I don't know who originally... Was it Chuck Spinney or who originally coined the phrase self-licking ice cream cone for the economics of militarism in America?
I don't know who coined the phrase, but it's pretty apt. I mean, that we are caught in a cycle here of producing weapons of war that don't work, and when they work, when they don't work the way they're supposed to. The Stryker is a classic example. I remember when it was first fielded. This is an infantry carrier vehicle. Carries about 9 members of a squad towards
It's supposed to be an improvement on the Bradley, is that it?
It's one step below the Bradley.
Okay.
It's supposed to carry soldiers, but it's not an armored personnel carrier. Eric Shinseki, the former Army Chief of Staff, way back when, fell in love with this idea. So had them design the Stryker, and they did so, and it initially got very high marks, but it rolls over, and it's very lightly armored, and it is almost useless when it runs over an IED. So it's actually ended up costing lives, and it's proven to be very controversial. And here we go again. The Army just let a contract to Oshkosh Defense for $942 million to fit the Stryker with a, with a lethal weapon. But the problem is, the problem with the Stryker is not its lethality; it's that it's vulnerable. They're not fixing the problem that they have, which is that its armor's too thin, and that it really can't carry soldiers all the way to the battlefield. It has to stop short of the battlefield because it's so lightly armored. So we're stuck with a weapon that we can't stop producing. We keep shoveling money at it, hoping it'll work, and it's not going to work.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to sound, completely naive Pollyanna here, but it seems after completely losing the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan that they really just want to use the CIA to back moderate rebel, suicide bomber, head chopper, bin Ladenite terrorists around the world against their enemies and not send in the infantry to anywhere to get blown up anytime in the near future, probably, right?
I think that the military, despite its public statements, it's kind of rah, we're going to fight until we win kind of attitude, is sick of these wars and wants out. And the sooner we get out, the better. And I think we're on the way out. I mean, and I know there's going to be a lot of foot dragging. because there's always foot dragging. And there are going to be a lot of claims and counterclaims, as you know and I know, about who won what and who lost what. But I think the bottom line here in the new Biden era is that we're finished with these wars. We're well rid of them. Yeah, there's going to be some more deaths on the way out the door, but we're walking out the door.
No, I really hope that's right. I mean, Iran is too big to fight, and they already pretty much blew up every country that can't fight back. So they're kind of out of countries to attack right now, sort of. I guess they could bomb Riyadh. I don't know if I'd mind that.
I think that if our job was to destabilize the Middle East, well, mission accomplished. We did that. Iran is not going to take over the region. Their military is not strong enough to do it, even if they wanted to, and it's not clear they do. Turkey has got the best military in the region, but they don't want to take over the region. Saudi Arabia has a weak military. They don't want to take over the region. Iraq is flat on its back economically. Syria's plunged into civil war. Egypt is an economic basket case. So what are we doing? Why are we there? And these questions keep getting asked, and they're never answered. And so I think that for a lot of military officers, it's just time to pack up and leave. Of course, we're still going to have to project force into the region. We're still going to do that, just to reassure the neocons that we're doing it. But I think that, here we are, how many months? August, September, 2 months away from the 20th anniversary of 9/11. The global war on terrorism is over, and we lost.
Yeah. Well, which of course means they can start it right back up at any time, especially if, something big happens, which they've shown. I don't know. It's not that easy to get into the United States, but they can hit pretty big targets in Europe pretty quick. And you got all those hawks of the last generation who are, kind of distracted on Russia and China and whatever right now. They got, a whole stack of, talking points about radical Islam and the danger of the terrorist threat and whatever to kick right back into publication, as soon as they're ready, as soon as something bad happens. So, yeah, if they end the terror war, but they don't end the policy of dominance in the Middle East, then the terrorist war against us is still going to continue. We'll go end up, I don't know. They're still backing them in the Idlib province, and they're still backing them in Yemen. So right now, it seems like the pro-terror wars are dominant, but that can switch back again pretty quickly,
Well, I think it's always been true that they're able to hit us, and that'll remain true. The question is whether that fundamental truth means we need to deploy, name your number, another 15,000 troops to Afghanistan. No, it's not going to stop them from hitting us. Another 15,000 to Iraq for what reason?
Yeah. Which, by the way, so we're going to get back to this Stryker debacle here in a second, but and those are, of course, two major wars where, it earned the nickname the Kevlar coffin, here you call it. You imagine that's how you lost your boy, is to just some scam, some worthless, way too big truck that nobody wants. And you gave your one good son for that, I don't know. Anyway, sorry for anybody out there who that's your story. I don't mean to pick a fight. I just mean I can put myself in that position. Imagine how horrible that'd be. But in this war, so right now, they've left Bagram. The claims are that they locked the gate and turned out the light at Bagram yesterday, the 1st of July, which is just unbelievable, but apparently it's true. But they're saying they're going to leave, air capacity in the region somewhere, and they're going to leave 650 troops at the embassy in Kabul, which I don't think was part of the deal with the Taliban and could, I don't know, possibly be a deal breaker with them. But clearly Biden has decided he's not sending 15,000 more to start the war against the Taliban all over again. He's admitted defeat on that, but then the real question is, can he, it's Joe Biden we're talking about after all. Is he determined enough to keep forces out and not re-escalate when everything really starts going to hell, which would probably be, right around September, October, when and maybe even sooner than that. I guess once the Taliban figure that it's too late for Biden to come back, they're going to march right into the capital city, aren't they?
Well, I'm not so sure. I think that there are parts of the Afghan military that are pretty dedicated and pretty well trained that can hold on for a fairly long time to some provincial capitals. I think that you can keep the airport in Kabul. You could probably keep Kabul. I think it'll probably be if the Taliban's really dedicated, and they are, it'll be a longer and more protracted fight. Maybe not August or September, maybe August, September next year. But no matter when it is or whether it happens, it would have happened 20 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or it might happen 10 years from now. We're just not going to win that war in the way that we think we're going to win it. So.
And you think the generals accept that now, that, screw them, who cares who rules Kabul?
Oh, I don't think that they accept it. I think that there's a lot of disquiet, discomfort with it. But if you ask them, well, what's your plan? They don't have one.
Yeah, well, we're going to send McMaster back over there to abolish corruption.
I was just going to say, you can dust off the old Stan McChrystal playbook, which didn't work with 90,000 or 60,000 or 30,000 soldiers or 3,000. It's not going to work. So, why kid yourself? If you're going to have to get out eventually and inevitably anyway, you should do it now. Save yourself a lot of heartache, save yourself and the American people a lot of money and treasure and blood, and just cut your losses and leave. And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all, Scott here. If you want a real education in history and economics, you should check out Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom. Tom and a really great group of professors and experts have put together an entire education of everything they didn't teach you in school but should have. Follow through from the link in the margin at scotthorton.org for Tom Woods' Liberty Classroom.
Look here, you and I both know that what you need is some Libertarian Institute things, like shirts and sweatshirts and mugs and stickers to put on the back of your truck, and to give to your friends too that say Libertarian Institute on them, so that everyone will know the origins of your oppositional defiant disorder and where they can listen to all the best podcasts. So here's what you do. Go to libertasbella.com and look at all the great Libertarian Institute stuff they've got going there. Find the ad in the right-hand margin at libertarianinstitute.org. libertasbella.com. You guys check it out. This is so cool. The great Mike Swanson's new book is finally out. He's been working on this thing for years. And I admit I haven't read it yet. I'm going to get to it as soon as I can, but I know you guys are going to want to beat me to it. It's called Why the Vietnam War: Nuclear Bombs and Nation Building in Southeast Asia, 1945 through 61. And as he explains on the back here, all of our popular culture and our retellings and our history and our movies are all about the height of the American war there in, say, 1964 through 1974. But how did we get there? Why is this all Harry Truman's fault? Find out in Why the Vietnam War by the great Mike Swanson. Available now. Now, isn't it funny? I'm younger. You're a little bit older. I know you remember better than me. I wasn't born till 76, but I did grow up in the shadow of the Vietnam War, and they did have to wear that black eye around for a little while, you know? It seems like it's different this time, where the narrative is, why are we leaving? We can't imagine why you would give in to the Taliban now, right, and snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, and this kind of thing. And since no one knows the first thing about the war, I guess, then that narrative kind of, people look at the calendar and they go, okay, it has been 20 years and that's a long time, but geez, you're just going to throw in the towel now? Something bad might happen. I just posted a clip on my Twitter there of Biden at a press conference, which is amazing. He held a press conference. How do you like that? But then they're all shouting at him, yeah, but what if something bad happens after we leave? And that's the frame of the whole thing. It's not like with Vietnam where they're like, what is taking so long to finally call this thing quits, I
think that what we don't realize or maybe the White House press corps doesn't realize, is that the vast majority of the American people don't care. They don't want us there. They want us out. They don't view this as a national humiliation. We did the best job we could, and now it's time to come home. And Vietnam was a little different. We didn't have an all-volunteer force. It was on the front pages of every newspaper every day. It was the topic of conversation around every dinner table.
No.
It never occurred to anybody that we could actually lose a war. Things have changed. And I think now that with an all-volunteer force and the kind of the endless war syndrome that we've been in, people are shrugging. This is not going to get Biden unelected. It's not going to get him reelected. It's going to be consigned to a footnote below, infrastructure negotiations, and everything else that he's trying to do in the January 6th insurrection and all of that. The war in Afghanistan is just not registering.
Yeah.
And that's good for Biden. And in a way, I think it's probably good for all the rest of us too.
Yeah, I'll take it. They showed him that clip I posted. Was they keep trying to ask him about Afghanistan. He goes, come on, it's the 4th of July. Leave me alone. I'm going to go to a barbecue and we'll talk about this next week. And I'm like, hey, I'll take it. You know what?
That's
What's
right.
he going to do? He's going to get up there and holler that, we lost. You know what? He can't do that. So let him have his little barbecue. We lost the war. It's over.
Right. That's right.
Sake. So now these strikers, I guess our guys are just going to be driving around in circles at Fort Hood and Fort Bliss. Are they going to be rolling over and dying in them?
Well,
They definitely can't take them into combat.
they can't take them into combat. I think they need a major redesign. That's not going to happen. Soldiers accommodate themselves. If you put on full kit, your combat camis and your knapsack and your canteen and your bandoliers and your armor and your helmet, you can't strap in. There's too much. So you make decisions, what to shed, which makes you more vulnerable, but at least you don't die in a rollover. So my bet is, we're gonna do what we do best in the U.S. Army. We're gonna, tell the rest of America that we've got the problem solved. We've got it licked. We're very well aware of these issues, and we'll take care of them. Don't you worry. And we won't take care of them. And we're just going to make sure that we don't use the Kevlar coffins, the Stryker infantry carrier vehicle, in situations where it makes our soldiers vulnerable. The problem with doing that is then why have it to begin with? And I think that this is a constant problem for the Army of upgrading or downgrading or expanding or modernizing a force, and what you end up doing is making it too big, too slow, and too unmaneuverable to really use effectively in combat. And what you need to do, not just with the Stryker or even with the Bradley fighting vehicle, or especially the M1 tank, is you kind of need to scrub the planning boards and start over again. The problem with doing that, it costs billions of dollars to do that. And so I think that what needs to happen in the U.S. Army is a major rethink of modernization. And I think that that's going to happen. I think the Army is in budgetary trouble. They have problems in their leadership. They don't have a good plan going forward. Their modernization effort is suspect. So I think that we're due for some major changes in the U.S. Army. They're coming soon. There are too many soldiers in the U.S. Army who are aware of these problems and aware that they're not being fixed. And they're going to step in and fix them. We're going to have some scandals, and it's going to be embarrassing for them, but they deserve it.
Yeah. This is really something else here. You have a quote from a man you characterize as a senior Pentagon official telling you this is the most egregious example of corporate welfare I've seen in a long time.
He
And
knows the army. He knows the army well, and he would know it when he sees it.
yeah, and that's really just 100 million for the new machine guns that they want to put on it. But
Right?
I think he said it's how many billion overall has gone into this program? 4
Oh,
billion?
it's huge, and it's been around for quite a while, 25 years, 20 years. It really hasn't proven its worth. I mean, as I said, the first time it was fielded, people, soldiers sang its praise, said, "Oh, this is terrific." But in the years since then, especially as a result of the Iraq War and Afghanistan War, there's been some real troubling issues raised, and they haven't been dealt with.
There's this new movie. I'm sorry, I forget the name of it. Came out not long ago about a siege of an American base in Afghanistan. It's a pretty good war movie. I don't know. It raises the question: what the hell are they doing all the way out there? But one of the scenes in there, I think it must be this truck. It's some huge truck that they didn't want in the first place, and the headquarters made them take, and now they want it back. So we got to drive it back, and then they die on the way, or the guy driving the truck anyway. I guess everyone else gets out, and the guy driving the truck drives it right off the side of a cliff, and dies in the thing. And I think it was all supposed to be based on a true story there. That he was, their favorite sergeant or whatever it was had died driving the truck. But then, as you say here, it's designed. In other words, they don't really claim that this is supposed to be for combat like an MRAP or a Bradley. This is supposed to be for moving light infantry forces, as you put it here, close to an objective.
Yeah.
In other words, like driving them up from Kuwait to Basra. And then from Basra, they'll go on an armored personnel carrier to Baghdad, something like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's
So you compare it to a Chevy Suburban, and in fact, you could buy a whole lot of Suburbans for $4 billion.
well, if you take a Chevy Suburban and put some armor on it, and put some bars on its windows, and put guys with helmets inside of it, you have a Stryker. And it's still a Chevy Suburban.
Yeah.
It's not going to take a tank round.
Yeah.
So this is a fundamental problem. I suppose you need a vehicle like this, but if you're going to have a vehicle like this on the battlefield, it has to be a lot less invulnerable than this one does. And if it's not, then why would you sign a contract with a company for $942 million to put, a machine gun on it if that's not what it was intended to do?
Yeah.
So this is throwing pretty good money after bad, and $1 billion is no small change in the U.S. Army that just saw a hit to its budget of $3.1 billion.
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense. It's really puzzling.
Is it just that Oshkosh Defense spends a lot of money on lobbying in D.C.? It's our money anyway. It's just a small percentage of the contracts. Right?
I think it's all kinds of. I think that's probably one factor. I think the other factor is, they're trying to make this thing work, and their solution is to make it more lethal. But that's not the problem. The problem is that it's vulnerable. So they're applying a tourniquet to the wrong part of the body. They're trying to fix one problem by fixing another problem that doesn't exist. I mean, it's just it doesn't make any sense. There are people inside the U.S. Army who are shaking their heads, wondering why in the world you would give $1 billion contract to a company that's going to mount a cannon on top of a Stryker vehicle that isn't intended to be used in combat.
Yeah, seriously. Well, it reminds me. So your book, I think, is The Pentagon's Wars, but there's a movie called The Pentagon Wars, and that's about the 1990s, about the Bradley fighting vehicle. And it stars Robin Hood Men in Tights, whatever that guy's name is, the surprised guy from the meme.
Right.
And he's like the Air Force officer who's sent to do a little bit of double checking on the Army here, and shows just what an absolute death trap the Bradley was at that time. And a big part of it was the generals kept changing what they want. I think it started out, we want a light truck for moving guys from here to there. And then they kept adding more and more armor and more guns and more things in a way where, you know, it really does need tracks now instead of tires. And it just kept just building on itself like that. So I think it started out as a strike or something.
Right. Yeah, there are these kinds of problems. They're peculiar to the U.S. Army. I mean, as I said earlier, you know, I think that they need to go back to the front of the class, to the blackboard, erase everything that they've written down and just start over. What do we need? What do we want it to do? How much will it cost? Does it work? I mean, I think that, you know, at some point the Army is going to have to do a real murder board and a scrubbing of its programs and weapons to figure out, you know, how to be relevant, because it's not relevant now and it's not a very effective force with the weapons it has. I don't doubt the boldness and the courage of individual soldiers. I think that that's been proven beyond a doubt. The question is, how do we serve them best and preserve their lives in combat situations? And the Stryker doesn't do it.
Yeah. Well, I like Ron Paul on this. Back in 2008, he told the Washington Post, "We could defend this country with a couple of good submarines." That sounds about right to me.
I think so.
Yeah. And that would be if the mission was defense and not global domination. So kind of a disconnect there. But
indeed, it is.
Yeah. All right, listen, I'm sorry. I know you got to go, and I do too, but I really appreciate you coming back on the show. Always great to talk to you, Mark.
Always good to be here. Thanks. Thanks a million.
All right, you guys, that's Mark Perry. This time he's at responsiblestatecraft.org. The Stryker is a death trap, but you're paying for it anyway.
The Scott Horton Show, Anti-War Radio, can be heard on KPFK 90.7 FM in LA, APSradio.com, antiwar.com, scotthorton.org, and libertarianinstitute.org.